The dust continues to settle. The draftees are now off to their new NBA cities, and the teams are reevaluating their rosters before the start of free agency. Hello, all. Great to have you there for our Eastern Conference Draft recap. I'm Matt Weiner, David Aldridge, Ronnie Thompson, Greg Anthony here with you as well. We'll give you everything you need to know about the picks, their potential to change the fortunes of their new teams. The Bobcats were the first Eastern Conference team on the clock on draft night. Most of the mock drafts projected Charlotte either going with Kansas forward Thomas Robinson or trading the pick away. So, of course, they went another direction entirely, going with Michael Kidd-Gilchrist from Kentucky, which had 4 players drafted. In the second round, Jeffrey Taylor from Vanderbilt, which also had a big draft night with 3 players picked. Let's start with the pick they did make. D.A., how many offers did the Bobcats field for that number 2?
Well, they had 5 what they considered legitimate offers, and basically it was Cleveland when it came down to it. I mean, the Cavaliers wanted to move up to 2 to take Bradley Beal, I believe. So at the end of the day, the Bobcats really just liked Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. He was just high on their draft board. They felt very comfortable with him coming in. Defensively, this is a team, well, look, they're 759, you need everything, right?
Defensively, offensively.
Offense, special teams, all of it, right? So they need everything. But just from a winning standpoint, leadership standpoint, they feel like he's a really good fit for them and their franchise going forward.
Basketball-wise, what are they getting out of MKG?
Well, just what D.A. said, they're getting a winner. They're getting a guy that you don't have to give the ball to for him to be effective. He goes and gets it off the boards. He scraps on defensively. Transition-wise, with Kemba Walker pushing it, he'll fill a lane hard, and you'll find him in transition. His jump shot does have to get a little bit better, but as Greg Anthony and I have been talking about, he's a guy that will play to his strength, and that's defense, that's getting on the offensive boards, that's slashing. He's a guy that has won at every level. You know, to play the position that he played at Kentucky, to only average 11 points, but to be the heart and soul of a national championship team says a lot.
And keep in mind, his numbers aren't reflective of his offensive ability either. Much like Anthony Davis is far better offensively than he showed over the course of the season because they played to win, not necessarily to put up stats. And his impact on the game of basketball, you know, oftentimes there's 6 or 7 things that happen over the course of a possession that don't show up in a box score. They don't show up on the stat sheet. He is the kind of player that will have an impact in those areas. And that's why I think this is a really good pick for them. It's going to change the culture of how they play. A lot of those games they lost just because of the inability to get stops. And his versatility defensively, he can guard the 1 through the 3. And this guy is a man physically. He's coming in developed, mature, and he's all about playing to win.
Big, solid body, youngest guy in the draft.
You know what's interesting about him also, from a playing standpoint, he's the kind of guy that you don't mind being on the floor with. He's a good teammate because he is accustomed to making the proper sacrifices.
The offensive numbers also suffered for the fact that he played with a lot of other really good players in Kentucky, including the number 1 overall pick. And Anthony Davis and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist joined this list of recent teammates to go in the top 5 of the draft. Most recently, 2 years ago, when John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins both also came out of
draft
Kentucky.
was pretty good too.
Number 1.
Not bad.
Was pretty good.
Some pretty good tandems there. Well, the Wizards have been busy the last 6 months, going back to the deal for Nene before the deadline. More recently, another trade with the Hornets that brought Emeka Okafor and Trevor Ariza to D.C. They also had the 3rd pick in the draft, which they used to give John Wall a new backcourt mate. Florida's Bradley Beal is the pick. Another big 2 guard went to the Wizards in the 2nd round. Thomas Satoransky hails from the Czech Republic, played in Spain last season, although D.A. tells me he's likely to stay in Europe for the immediate future at least. So let's start with Beal. G.A., what's he bring to D.C.?
A few things. One, he is a guy who can, first and foremost, make shots, which is something that this team as a whole struggled to do. We know about the inconsistency with John Wall as a shooter. I think it's magnified when no one else can make open shots. The fact now that this guy can make shots will help. Secondly, I think he's a terrific playmaker and a defender. One thing that I was impressed most with him, playing at Florida, he played alongside Irving Walker and Kenny Boyden, 2 guys who had more of a scorer's mentality. They weren't facilitators, they weren't distributors, and so it put him in a position where he had to play out of position his freshman year, yet he was still an effective player. And as the season progressed, he got better. I think his upside is tremendous. I think he'll be a far better and more impactful pro than he was a collegian because he's going to get to play his natural position, and he's going to get to play to his strengths. Washington has changed their entire culture. They brought in a defensive-oriented team when you talk about Okafor and Ariza, and now you got another guy, I think, in Beal, who is going to get after it defensively. So this is a team that could make a big jump next season. Not necessarily a playoff team, but they could be a far more competitive team, a fringe postseason team participant if this all works out.
As I mentioned, the Wizards have changed their roster a little round here in the offseason, including the acquisition of Bradley Beal, who brings that prototypical two-guard body. Here is a look at some of the key players there, including Emeka Okafor and including Trevor Ariza. And it's a little different look than what they had last year.
Absolutely. I mean, look, we've talked about this a long time with the Wizards. The knucklehead factor was off the charts the last 3 years. I mean, in all honesty, they just didn't have guys that understood the first thing about winning basketball games in the NBA. And now I think they have a much more professional team. You look at Nene coming in last year. Really, he was, to Greg's point, he was the best shooter on the team. It wasn't even close last year.
Yeah.
You know, so now he becomes the best shooter on the team. You add Okafor, who's a pro's pro. You add Trevor Ariza, who's a very good pro, won a ring in L.A. And so now they've surrounded John Wall with much more professional guys, much more veteran guys. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're more talented guys, but they'll be in more games because they'll play harder, they'll pay more attention to detail, and they do like Randy Whitman, so you expect them to give maximum effort for Randy Whitman going forward.
Yeah, that's a start. Playing the right way, playing hard, those are good ways to build a team. We've got more to come here, including a couple of new teammates for last year's top overall pick, how the Cavs fared in their quest to build around Kyrie Irving.
The number 1 pick belongs to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
The Cleveland Cavaliers select Kyrie Irving.
Right now, I'm really just focused on getting best prepared for the NBA.
For the second straight year, the Cavaliers were in the spotlight on draft night. Last year, of course, because they had the top pick, which went for Rookie of the Year Kyrie Irving. This time around, Cleveland made headlines with a surprise pick of Syracuse's Dion Waiters at number 4 and a deal with Dallas to move up to pick center Tyler Zeller. Cavaliers GM Chris Grant was the man behind those moves, and he's with us now from Cleveland. Chris, what impressed you about Waiters enough to make him the 4th pick overall?
During the season and throughout the whole process, we were really looking for another player that we could add to our perimeter that was able to get in the lane, create for himself, create for others, get to the free throw line, made himself better and created shots for his teammates. And we did an enormous amount of work on Dion, and through the process, we always had him ranked very high internally. And when we got to last night, for us, he was the best player left on the board.
Did you go into the draft targeting Zeller in particular or a big in general, and how did that deal come about?
We were targeting bigs, and we ranked Tyler pretty high on our board just because it's hard to find big, skilled players, and he can do a lot of things, and I think he'll continue to grow in the NBA. So at about actually the 10th pick, when he was still on the board, we were trying to make deals with all the picks after to try to get him, and obviously we got lucky at 17, but he was a guy we did like, and we felt like if he got in a range that we could trade into, we would try to get in and get him, and we were lucky enough to do so.
Hey, Chris, Dave Aldridge here. Obviously, there was a lot of chatter about maybe trying to move up to 2 to get the 2nd pick with Charlotte. How close did that come?
You know, David, you never really know when you're working on deals. We're in a pretty lucky place with our ownership group, and I was telling some people this morning, we were trying to move up, we were trying to move down, and if we could, we would have moved sideways. So, you know, we were trying to be very creative, using our cap space to take on contracts, and we have a lot of picks going forward, and we're in a great spot from a flexibility standpoint. We want to continue to add good young players to our core, but, you know, we had a lot of conversations, and you never know if you're really that close because the other side's got to make a decision also.
Chris, was it a tough sell for you with your owner to say, look, I'm going to take this guy that a lot of people have lower on their boards. He didn't start in college, but I tell you what, this guy Waiters can really play. Was that a tough sell for you?
It really wasn't. We spent a couple days talking about not just the draft, but the next steps for our franchise. And throughout our process, he's always been very supportive. And if you look at Deion and his ability and how he plays, he's got a chance to be a really good player. And for us, we can't really pay attention to the mock drafts and the draft boards. I mean, they're fun to look at as a fan, and definitely follow them from that standpoint. But if we see a guy we like, if we're going to take him 3 spots higher, 4 spots higher, or whatever it may be than what everybody else thinks, we're going to go in and get the guy.
You know, Chris, what's interesting for me is that you also, if I'm not mistaken, you had Deion rated as your 4th best prospect in this draft.
We had him rated pretty high, yes.
And so in that respect, then it's not necessarily a reach. You guys needed help really at the swing position in general. So I'm just curious, though, what skill set that he brings that maybe Harrison Barnes at the small forward doesn't bring that you like that fits with what Kyrie Irving and you're doing for the future?
Yeah, well, they're both good young players, Greg. I mean, they're both going to be really talented pros. And without getting into the specifics against each one of them, Deion was the best fit for us. We needed another player that could handle and create off the dribble with the ball. And in this case, Deion can not only handle and create and pick and roll for himself and get in the lane and finish and create for others, but he's also a pretty good shooter. I mean, his percentages are, you start ranking him up against the other 2 guards, they're pretty impressive. And he's a guy that does need the ball, and we're a team that needs another player that actually needs the ball. So it really works out well for us. And we had an interesting moment when we were debating fit and how Kyrie and he would fit together and other players. And, you know, we have Zydrunas Ilgauskas on staff, and someone said, you know, he may need the ball too much. And Z said, well, all good players need the ball. That's why they're good, because they do good things with the ball. So, you know, when you look at the playoffs and good teams, they got multiple players in the perimeter that can really attack, and they got good bigs. And we're trying to work towards that.
And speaking of bigs, last year Tristan Thompson comes to Cleveland. This year it's Zeller coming along. Anderson Varejao is mentioned as a potential trade chip. It seems like every year he's healthy. He's still got a couple of years left on his contract. Is his long-term future still in Cleveland?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we'll never, you know, there's always deals that are talked about, and you may end up trading guys that you're not, you know, you're fans of, also good friends with. That tends to happen, but in the short term, we have no plans to trade Andy. I mean, he's really become a leader for us. You know, he's a guy that's played in the NBA Finals and played on a lot of successful teams, and now he's become a mentor and leader on our team. And, you know, before he got injured last year, he was nearly a double-double guy that was having a heck of a season. So we have no plans, like I said, in the short term, and he's a big part of who we are, and he really epitomizes who we are as a franchise.
Hey, Chris, congratulations on the draft. You've got time to catch a breath and then start free agency.
Yeah, what is that, 24 hours?
Yeah, that's about right. Good to talk to you.
You guys do a great job. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Chris Grant from the Cleveland Cavaliers. And coming up, the new big man in the Motor City as we continue to dissect the draft for Detroit and everyone else in the East. The Raptors have had 5 cracks at the draft lottery over the last 7 seasons, starting with #1 overall in 06, Andrea Bargnani. 3 years later, Toronto took DeMar DeRozan 9th overall. 2 years ago, the Raps went with North Carolina's Ed Davis with the 13th pick. And last year, with the 5th selection, the Raps took Jonas Valanciunas, who stayed in Europe last season, but we're told is expected to wear a Raptors uniform in the NBA this year. This summer, the Raptors raised some eyebrows by taking Terrence Ross, a 6'6" 2-guard from Washington, projected by most as more of a mid-first round guy. Toronto also picked up Baylor big man Quincy Acey with their 2nd round pick. As for Ross, he was the leading scorer in Washington, where he played alongside fellow draftee Tony Wroten, who went to the Grizzlies with the number 25 pick. How much can Ross help the Raptors right now?
Well, like many teams selecting this early in the draft, they have a lot of needs. And Ross is a player that can create his own shot. And I think the Raptors really needed that. He's a guy that can go off the bounce. He can 1-2 dribble pull up. He's crafty in terms of scoring the basketball, but he's not one-dimensional. He's also a guy that will give you the effort and the energy on the defensive end. He stretches the defense because you have to respect his jump shot, and then once you start to run at him, he's able to put the ball on the deck and get to certain spots on the floor. The Raptors had several needs. I think they need to get tougher, they need to get stronger, but they also need somebody that can score off the dribble.
Yeah, listen, Brian Colangelo has always been more offensive oriented in terms of his vision for what a team needs to do. And this is more along those lines as well from an offensive standpoint. Now, keep in mind, he does play the same position as DeMar DeRozan, who has improved every year he's been there, much improved with his jump shot, not to the level of Terrence Ross, but I guess they're going to play them some together.
Yeah.
But I would have, there are other areas of need that this team had from a power forward standpoint, potentially from the point guard position, obviously, as well. So there are other areas that they could have gone, but Terrence Ross is a talent.
How big a surprise was the pick?
It was a bit of a surprise, a little high, but they liked him, and a lot of teams really liked Terrence Ross. And when he came to the interview process, he was a very impressive young man, very gregarious young man. And while that's not the only reason you make a decision on a player, when you get a chance to finally have the guy in front of you, you ask him real tough questions about himself, his background, some of the things you've heard that you don't like about him. When they answer it honestly and when they answer it, with truth and with some humor, that goes a long way with a lot of teams.
Craig Sager's questions aren't nearly as tough. Typically, here he is with the newest Raptor.
Well, one of the most improving teams in the NBA, the Toronto Raptors, not only from what they have planned from overseas, but also drafting Terrence Ross with the 8th pick. I know it's nerve-wracking out there not knowing where you're going, but did you think you may go to Toronto?
I'm not, honestly, no. I thought I was going to be in the green for a long time, prepare myself the night before, just learn how to be patient, because I thought I was going to be in there for a long time, but to hear my name go 8th is truly a blessing.
Did you work out for Toronto? What type of workout did you have?
I worked out Toronto early in the year, yeah.
How'd you do?
I did really well. I think that was one of the best workouts I had.
How tough was it to be out on the West Coast of Washington, having what you guys thought was going to be a great year, then having to go to the NIT and maybe not have all your dreams fulfilled there?
It was disappointing, but I think, we all got our heads on right, and we finished the season the best way we could. And, I was happy with that.
We got a tweet a little while ago. Andre Iguodala said you're the best dressed of everybody in the green room. How do you pick out what you're going to wear?
It's hard. I seen some of your clips before, so I had to, I'll show you or something, at least try, so motivation.
All right. Well, you look great. Congratulations. Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Terrence would have been well within his rights to ask Craig the exact same question, by the way. I'll just leave it at this. We have excellent tie variety on this show.
There you go.
Toronto at the number 8 spot. The Pistons had the 9th pick in the draft, and they went for size and potential with UConn freshman center Andre Drummond. The 7-footer Drummond has all the upside in the world, but also confounded scouts occasionally with passive play. With the 39th pick, Detroit chose a small forward, Texas A&M's Chris Middleton. Then 5 picks later took Kim English. He's a 2-guard from Missouri who was forced to play power forward last season for a very small Tigers squad. Drummond was one of the most divisive players in the draft in terms of evaluations. In the best case scenario, Greg, how good can he be?
Well, I think potentially could be an all-star. Now, that's the best case, and I don't know if we will see that. But the one thing I do like about him is that if he can focus on what he is good at, he will make an impact right away because he can defend the post, he can rebound and block shots. And those are areas that all teams want to be able to shore up. So physically, I think he would be a nice complement to what Greg Monroe could do, who's a much more skilled player, a little bit more cerebral. But listen, he's going to take time. Second youngest player in this draft. Didn't have the benefit of having strong leadership in the locker room at UConn, nor at the helm with Jim Calhoun because of his health issues. So there is some time and maturation that's going to have to take place, but this could be a huge boon if he fulfills his potential.
I mentioned the opinions were sort of all over the place on Drummond. How polarizing was he in terms of evaluation?
Well, he was polarizing only in the sense of when you wanted to take him. Could you take him in the top 10? And that was the problem that teams had. And it's the gamble that Detroit took. And it's a gamble. I mean, there's no getting around that. But the Pistons felt that at the 9th pick, the potential reward outweighs the potential risk, and that you want to swing for the fences here. If it works out, he's a terrific complement to Greg Monroe. They have a big man duo that very few people in the league would have. But it's a gamble because potential gets coaches fired. I mean, that's what happens, and gets GMs fired too, that make the pick. So for a team that's rebuilding to take a big gamble like this, I mean, this is a swing for the fences thing. Either he's going to be great and everybody's going to be happy and living large, or he's going to struggle, and we're going to have new people in Detroit in a couple of
It
years.
always works. Cost-benefit analysis. That's the name of the game. Let's stay in the Central Division. The Bucks were busy getting big this week, first with the trade with Houston that brought Samuel Dalembert to Milwaukee, then on draft night with another shot blocker. North Carolina's John Henson will come to Milwaukee with the 14th pick. The two-time ACC Defensive Player of the Year, led the league in blocks and rebounds last season. They picked up an offensive player with the 42nd pick, shooting guard Deron Lamb from the national champs. And Ronnie, let's start with Henson. How does he project as an NBA pro?
He's a pretty interesting pick, and I say this because when you look at him physically, he's going to have to gain weight, he's going to have to get stronger, and you have to wonder, can physically playing the 4 position in the NBA, can he hold up? When you start to analyze his game, he's an energy guy, he runs the floor, great shot blocker, you like what he brings you on the defensive end. From an offensive standpoint, a lot of concerns. Does he have a go-to move? Can he consistently hit the 10 to 15-foot jump shot? Can he put the ball on the floor to get to certain spots, which you have to be able to do at the NBA level? But from a defensive standpoint, good pick. Offensively, a lot to be desired.
Here's Craig with North Carolina's all-time blocks leader.
Well, the Milwaukee Bucks obviously are trying to build a reputation as a good defensive team. They get the two-time ACC Defensive Player of the Year, John Henson, and looking at all the different situations, different players you could go, different places. How happy are you going to be a Buck?
I'm very happy. It was one of those cities that people asked me how it was, and I said I loved it, and they kind of looked at me funny, but it's a great city. You know, I love the feel of it, and, you know, I'm excited to get out there.
What makes you like the city so much?
Just the laid back, and you know, everyone's kind of relaxed. You know, no traffic is a big thing, and so you can get everywhere in 20 minutes. So that's just my type of city.
What about your game? You know, obviously I feel it's very adaptable to the NBA because of the way you play defense and all. What do you think you have to improve on?
Probably just strength-wise, either stronger and you know, put on weight, and as well as offensively. You know, keep getting better every year and working on things. And you know, I think that's a great atmosphere around in Milwaukee for me to get better. And you know, I'm hoping for the best.
You got a great atmosphere, obviously, in North Carolina. What are you going to miss most about Chapel Hill?
Probably just the, you know, like the atmosphere, you know, the fans and, you know, my teammates especially. Miss those guys. I check on them every day, call them, see how they're doing, and getting reports on how they're playing. So, you know, hopefully, you know, it'll be fine next year, and they'll be able to watch me a little bit.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Craig. And there's a young man thinking ahead. He's already evaluated the traffic
Absolutely.
in his new NBA town and deemed it, you know, a place where he wants to live and drive.
Is it 20 minutes everywhere once it snows as well?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's
Probably. Yeah.
If you live downtown, it might be 20
can make
minutes
it.
to get over the arena after it snows. We've got lots more ahead here. The Celtics came within a game of the NBA Finals, but Rajon Rondo figures to be working with a very different roster next season. We'll break down Boston's picks on the other side. Philly, Orlando, and Boston all drafting in the middle to latter stages of the first round. The Sixers landed Maurice Harkless from St. John's with the 15th pick. Orlando got St. Bonaventure big Andrew Nicholson at 19. And the Celtics bulked up with back-to-back bigs, Jared Sullinger, the much-discussed Ohio State star, and Syracuse's Fab Melo at 21 and 22. Philly pushed the Celtics in the conference semifinals. Good young roster. How can Harkless help them now?
You know, when you look at how Harkless played in college, he played a lot of the 4 and some of the 5, just simply because St. John's didn't have the depth. But he, without a doubt, is a small forward and can play that position, and I think will do a very good job in the NBA, especially backing up a guy like Iguodala, learning the ins and outs of that position. But he's a superb athlete, has to probably work on knocking down the outside jump shot just a bit, but long arms, tough competitor, will fit in exactly with what Collins is doing with the 76ers.
Right, that's a great point. I tell you what, they also, I think, got a steal with Arnett Moultrie. I thought he should have been a first rounder. This is a guy who reminds me a great deal of Taj Gibson. He's got a great motor, excellent shooter, shoots almost 80 from the free throw line. He's big, physical, and aggressive, tenacious rebounder. This guy is going to have an impact on that roster, and he really gives them something else. You know, Philly's one of those teams, they're smallish athletically. He gives them some serious size. He plays big. He's going to be a really good fit for them for next season.
Moultrie came via a deal with Miami, who selected him in the second round. Meanwhile, in Orlando, everything, of course, hinges on the future of Dwight Howard. But in the meantime, the Magic have an intriguing big in Nicholson, the first St. Bonaventure player drafted in the first round since
Who?
Come on, you know the answer. Bob Lanier.
Oh.
Bob Lanier. On the surface,
said,
seems like a nice counter to what Ryan Anderson does there.
Well, sure, Ryan Anderson's a free agent, and just in case they can't re-sign him, this is a guy who does a lot of the same things. He can play that stretch 4 position. He's not the best guy inside, but he's not without skill inside, but he can really shoot the ball for a big man. He runs the floor very well for a big man, and so this is a good, solid pickup for Orlando in case they do lose Ryan Anderson.
And is it related in any way to the Dwight Howard situation?
No, you just take the guy you think is the best player left on the board, and again, because of the free agent situation, they don't know if they're going to be able to keep Ryan Anderson, because if you do trade Dwight Howard, you may be taking a lot of contracts back,
right.
And so this is a kind of insurance against that.
And let me say this, though. Everything they do, it has something to do with Dwight Howard. It really does. There's no way to look around
Until that situation's resolved, everything, they're thinking about it in some angle or another. As for Boston, they got very small last season. Remember, Kevin Garnett had to shift to center. He's a free agent, so no surprise they went with size with their 2 first-rounders. How can Sullinger and Melo help them right now?
I think Sullinger can probably help him a little more right now because he's just a really good basketball player. People question his athleticism. When you have great skill and a high basketball IQ, that makes you a little bit more impactful at the game of basketball. And the other thing you got to remember with Boston, they're one of the best in the league at player development. You know, there's one thing to coach players, it's another to develop them. You look at what they've done with Avery Bradley, with Rajon Rondo, and their progression through the years. They end up fulfilling their potential with some of their young players. I think that could be a similar scenario with these 2 guys, in particular Fab Melo, who does need to be developed. But if it does pan out, these are late first-round picks. It could end up being a steal in the draft.
Ronnie, how big a factor was the back injury, which was revealed in the latter stages of the build-up toward the draft, versus his relative lack of size for the position, and as you mentioned, relative lack of athleticism?
Well, look, a lot was made over the whole back deal. Yeah. You know, Boston's doctors looked and examined him and said, look, this is much of nothing. You know, it's something there, but nothing that you need to be overly aware of. It's a high-risk, low-worry type of situation. And I think Boston got the steal of the draft. You know, ironically speaking, a guy like Sullinger, whom everyone knew about, they said he would have gone top 5 if he'd come out last year. He wasn't a surprise. For him to fall as low as he did, he is a solid ball player. You know, when you go to the combines, he didn't test off the charts. He didn't run very well. They look at his body fat. This isn't a beauty contest.
Right.
It's a basketball game. And when it comes to playing basketball, Sullinger can play. People say he's not an above-the-rim player. Most of the rebounds that are gotten are taken below the rim. They're not taken above the rim. He knows how to play basketball. Good pickup.
I love what Doc Rivers said about it. You know, he said he played most of his career with a bad back.
Yes, he did.
Well, he did. But, you know, backs don't get better. I'll just say that.
No, that's true. It can be a problem. And there are plenty of players out there who've had to deal with them and have slowed down their careers.
Yeah, exactly.
As for Melo, goes a pick after Sullinger. What do the Celtics think they have with him?
Well, look, he's a shot blocker defensively. If you had a game tonight, he could help you at the defensive end. He's got a long way to go offensively, a long way to go. But they need size. Kevin Garnett played center. He played it unwillingly, but he played it. I think they would love to have an alternative. You know, they do have Stietzma, who they brought in last year, but this is a guy who, in a couple of years, you know, could be a very productive, rotational type center. But look, until we find out what Kevin Garnett's doing, all of this is none of this matters. They are not the same basketball team without Kevin Garnett.
Right.
So if Kevin Garnett retires, this is a rebuild. Right. I don't care if Paul Pierce is there, Rondo. It's a rebuild. They got to rebuild.
And so handicap that for us.
Nobody knows, and anybody tells you they know, they don't know, because Kevin Garnett is not going to tell anybody, not going to tell me, you know. But it's going to be in the next couple of days. He said he wants to let them know before the start of free agency, so that if he does retire, they can go forward. You think about a guy like O.J. Mayo on Friday. Memphis did not tender him.
Right.
He's going to be an unrestricted free agent. The Celtics tried to get him before the trade deadline, so I'm sure they'll be all over him as well. But it's going to be a totally different team. And going forward, a guy like Melo to play some minutes at center, whether Garnett's there or not, is something they had to address.
It's a lot to factor in.
It is.
One guy's decision.
It is, but they got some insurance policy to the best of their ability, given the situation that they're in. And when you look at a guy like Melo, you have to give him credit. From his freshman to his sophomore year, he lost a ton of weight, became an athletic, active center. And Greg and I always talk about this. Guys have to know where their strength is. He has a lot to be desired offensively, but defensively, he got his body in condition so that he can be a factor at that position.
And the other advantage they get with these two guys, even if they don't get Kevin Garnett, but I think he will end up playing. If he plays, it's going to be for Boston. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah.
The other advantage they have is they have so much skill around those guys that they can just play to their strengths. They're not going to have to come in and do things they're not comfortable doing. And if they're just in the rotation, if you pick late in the first round and you get a guy that's in your rotation, you've had a really good draft. So, and I think both these guys will find themselves playing minutes for the Celtics next season.
Sullinger, you project him as a low post guy in the NBA, or is he going to have to develop more of a face-up 15-foot kind of
Listen, he's going to be able to play in the paint. The thing about, he knows how to play.
Yes.
Like, he's not going to try to go and post 7-foot guys up. You know, he's going to, if he gets a bigger guy, he can put the ball on the floor a lot better than people realize.
Yep.
He can make a mid-range jump shot. He's a really good passer. He just knows how to play. And when you can play the game of basketball with skill set, it'll offset some of the deficiencies you may have athletically. We've seen it time and time again with great players who aren't great athletes.
He's a basketball player.
Yep.
We've overanalyzed a guy he's been that size his entire career and has had nothing but success, and he's won. We're not talking about a big stiff. We're not talking about a big lazy kid. We're talking about a guy that has given it up for his entire college career.
One quick thing. Thad Matta told me he is the best player he's ever coached. Thad Matta has coached a lot of really good players. Ohio State and Xavier.
Absolutely. All right, overanalyzing, we'll continue that.
Well, we do.
That's what we do, right?
No. More on the way. Derrick Rose is on the mend and appears to have a new backup in Chicago. The Bulls, Hawks, and Pacers are all in our sights next. Next up in our sights, the Hawks, the Pacers, and the Bulls. Atlanta took John Jenkins out of Vanderbilt with the 23rd overall pick, then Mike Scott at 43. The Pacers go with Miles Plumlee, bit of a controversial pick at number 26, and the Bulls appear to have a backup for Derrick Rose with the 29th overall pick, Marcus Teague from the Kentucky Wildcats. Let's start with Jenkins, and the line I keep hearing over and over and over again is best shooter available in the draft.
No doubt about it. I mean, this guy is a lights-out shooter. He's got great quickness. He's got range. You know, he can also get his shot off the dribble a little bit as well. That's not his greatest strength, but the thing I like about it from Atlanta's perspective, they're an ISO team. ISO teams need space, and this guy will create space out on the floor. You saw the impact of having shooters for the Miami Heat. John Jenkins could have that kind of an impact as a Shane Battier, Mike Miller type for Atlanta. He can really let it fly.
Will he be able to spend much time on the floor with Joe Johnson?
I think because he can shoot the ball, he'll have his chance, you know, because teams are going to double team Joe, they're going to run at Joe. But when you talk about shooters, you say this guy shoots and it doesn't even touch the rim. When Jenkins shoots, it doesn't touch the nets. He shoots and it goes straight in the basket, and he's very, very consistent. And he's a guy that's expanded his game. Yes. He's gotten to the point where he can put the ball on the deck and get to certain spots. Whenever you can shoot the ball as well as he can with his size, you'll have a legitimate shot to get minutes in the NBA.
As for the Pacers, I mentioned Miles Plumlee, a pick not everyone is going to agree with. What did they see in Plumlee that led him to take him at 26?
Well, I think, you know, the consistency in terms of just being able to run the floor. He's not going to ever be a great player, but they've had success the last couple of years with guys that were kind of plotters but just gave you maximum effort. It is a controversial pick. There's no getting around that. I thought they were going to take Perry Jones. He was on the board. They liked him. For whatever reason, they didn't go in that direction. As Greg's mentioned, Moultrie was certainly available if you're looking for a big who can run the floor. Plumlee can run the floor. He gives you effort. But I don't know what upside there is with Plumlee. I don't know where he gets better, whereas with the other guys, you could see them definitely have a chance to get better.
You know, I talked to Roy Hibbert, and once they made their selection, I said, Roy, I'm a little bit surprised you guys went with Plumlee. What do you think? He said, Coach, he said, I was at the workout. He absolutely killed it. He said his energy was good. He said he was on the boards. He was making his shots. And I've seen Plumlee play in person about 3 times this year. And he's a guy that's not a give it to me on the block, go to work kind of post guy. He's the kind of post guy that I call a motion scorer. He gets it off penetrating kicks, and he's in the right spot, he gets a dunk. Pick and roll, he rolls, he slides, he gets tip-ins. But he's not the kind of guy you give it to and say go to work.
Listen, the other issue I have, he doesn't have great basketball instincts. And that's he is a really good athlete. He's very athletic. But the problem is with basketball is if you think the game, you don't play it with quickness and explosion. And so as great an athlete as he really is, it doesn't really translate on the floor. And listen, the guy only averaged about 6.5 rebounds a game in college. So it's not like he is, and it's because of his motor, and the motor is affected because of his instincts. And if I'm Indiana and I want a guy like that, Moultrie would have been the guy to take, because that kid is bigger, more athletic, more skilled.
But he's going to be playing with better players in Indiana, too. So he's not going to have to, maybe his instincts kick in. He doesn't have to be a great player. You're going to be playing with 4 or 5 guys. Just go run.
Just run, be
fast. But why not get a better runner? That's my point. So, I mean, I understand why your thought process with him, but if Moultrie's not on the board, I absolutely see why you go that route. But Moultrie
you know what
is a pretty good basketball player.
When you see picks like this, and we talked about it in the green room, you only need one team to like you. You only need one team to like you, and you have the need that team needs. And again, we're not privy to the psychological evaluations. We're not in the one-on-one interview.
We're not that workout.
We haven't done the background research. We weren't at the workout. So when you see a guy jump like that, you know something went on, or a team saw something that they really, really like.
Yep. It's a good life lesson. You only need one boss to like you.
That's right.
Out there. The Chicago Bulls like Marcus Teague enough to make him Derrick Rose's heir apparent, or not heir apparent, but his apparent backup as Rose recovers from knee surgery. It's a lot of pressure on him coming in.
It is, but it also isn't, because he obviously understands what he's going to be coming into. This also speaks to the fact that they're not going to bring C.J. Watson back. I mean, ultimately, remember, Chicago's going to have issues from a cap standpoint. Derrick Rose's contract kicks in this year as well.
Extension,
so with the new collective bargaining, you're going to have other issues. And you know what? This young man can play.
Yes.
Marcus Teague's a really good player. The other thing I like about him, he learned how to play with talent. You know, and that's a really important skill set to have. A lot of really good players can't play well when they're not the best player. He learned how to play well with talent, and I think that'll benefit him really well with the Bulls.
See, when you look at a lot of the Kentucky guys, that's a sacrifice they had to make. A team that was as loaded as they were, you had multiple guys that had to sacrifice their strength for the betterment of the team. Teague is a guy that innately is a scorer. He saw him play often in high school. He's in attack mode. What does he do? He comes to Kentucky. He has to downshift. He has to learn how to run a team. He has to start to understand tempo. And at the second half of the season, he slowly started to embrace the fact that I don't have to score 20. I can score 10 and 8 and still be effective. I can score 6 points, get 10 assists. But that's what our team needs. And because he's maturing and he's young and he has the opportunity to learn behind a Derrick Rose, he'll get better at that position.
Listen, his ability to learn how to do less is the reason they won more. He was the most important element of their team, because if he doesn't figure it out, they would not have won a national championship. It really would not have. And that's the reason, and I think that's the reason why he's going to be a more successful pro, because he learned how to defer.
He led the national champs in assists. And I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Timeline on Derrick Rose. Is Chicago thinking that Teague could be the starter?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, I think Derrick, you know, they're saying now maybe April. You know, we'll see. Nobody knows, and nobody's going to know for a few months. You can be as optimistic as you want. They also have John Lucas III, who's a free agent that they're probably going to re-sign. They like him very much. He fit in very well with the way they like to play. So they're not going to – Marcus Teague is not going to be the starter on opening night and play 40 minutes. They're not going to put that much pressure on him.
Right.
So, and they could also sign somebody. There's a free agent or two out there, veteran point guard that would love to play in Chicago. So they're not done yet.
No, it's a fairly popular destination. We've lumped the Knicks, the Nets, and the Miami Heat into one graphic.
Yeah.
Because
that's all you had to do.
Well, they didn't have first-round picks. And so there you have it.
That's it. I think we can go to break now.
Unless someone has
just
something
leave the graphic up a little longer so people can digest it.
There are a lot of syllables there. There are a lot of syllables there to get through.
You know, I went to the V. I don't do more than 2 or 3 syllables.
Papa Nicola, I'll say this. He did play well in some of the tournaments over in Europe this year.
Yeah, man, that's the Ivy League of the Desert.
Well, there you have it.
Is that how you all sold it?
On the other side, a nervous night for the guys in the green room on draft day. We'll let you tag along with a lottery pick when we come back. NBA Summer League is coming up from Orlando and Las Vegas. You want to watch all the new draftees and their first taste of NBA basketball in a pro setting, and you can do so with Summer League Broadband. Go to NBA.com/Summer League Broadband to learn more. Summer League coming up July 9th through the 22nd. Well, it must seem like an eternity for a prospective draftee to wait for his name to be called on draft night, even if it's only 9 picks in. Such was the case for UConn center Andre Drummond, and when he was selected by the Pistons, his NBA journey officially began.
Just had a whole bowl of fries earlier. Eat some chicken tenders now, a little bit of water. I'll finish this off, throw on my draft suit. Y'all gonna see me looking fly and smooth. Both is what you see here. So we'll be rocking throughout the draft. And I'll see you after the draft with a big smile on my face and my team's hat on. Let's see how that. What's up, young man?
Hey. You got a boys from UConn?
Very nice.
Just laying low.
Yeah, they have a number of
Just waiting for my mom to come down, the rest of my family to come down, just get the show on the road. I'm just real excited to hear my name being called, you know what I'm saying? And it's gonna be a great experience. I can't wait to look forward to what the future has for me. What's going on, Coach? I'm doing well, yourself? Yeah, man, I'm excited, real excited.
With the 9th pick in the 2012 NBA draft, the Detroit Pistons select Andre Drummond from the University of Connecticut.
Put your hat on and keep it above your brow.
You look like a very happy fella, Buzz.
Very happy. Speechless, man. It's really a dream come true. Let's make moves. Let's go, bodyguard. All right, come on, camera crew. Superstar. Look, we got a whole crew with him too. Got a gang behind him. Ain't nothing changed, man. Good job, man. Definitely, man. I know we're gonna build a great team chemistry right away, and we have a great family up there. It's a great organization. The fans are great up there, and I just can't wait to be a part of the team. I mean, I have fun with it, so I think I'll do just fine with the media.
Can we take your picture real quick?
GQ, am I gonna be on the cover?
Yeah, not yet. Not yet.
You got swag, man. Got all the swag. I need to come be a stylist. I mean, me see the bus right here, just I was calm. Then the draft pick came out, got real emotional, but we're winding down now. I'm a Detroit Piston, so I head out to Detroit tomorrow for the press conference and start my journey there.
Drummond hails from a long line of UConn alums in the NBA. There were 12 of them last year, including these 3 big men who have not necessarily played to their draft position. Not an all-star appearance between them so far, but let's be honest, their careers have nothing to do with Drummond's. I mean, it makes for
nothing at all. But they have had a lot of success with guards.
Yes,
the guards have been very good.
The big men?
Not as much.
Okafor has been okay. He's been a solid pro.
If it weren't for his draft slot, his draft slot, you would say he's had a great career.
Remember what we always said, draft's relative, because there's been some. He ain't the first number 2. There's been number 2s that haven't had the career he's had.
I don't care where they were drafted. I care what they did when they got on the court. I don't care.
Yeah, what's fascinating to me, though, is you watch that, is Andre Drummond is an 18-year-old kid thrust into this position. The money, the spotlight he's in, the responsibility. You talked earlier about the potential to impact the futures of his bosses.
Yes.
A lot riding on a kid.
Absolutely. And look, he says that he's a little misunderstood, that he's just kind of funny and quiet and doesn't, but again, this is the man's league now. You're in the man's league. And so you're going to get paid money to play basketball. And so you've got to approach this with a little bit more seriousness and sobriety. And
it's your job.
It's your job now. So you hope that he understands that and learns that quickly. He's going to have a great young mentor in Greg Monroe to deal with, who knows how to do this, who's a pro, and who's become a very good player. And I think it will come out. Lawrence Frank's a good coach. They got a good staff there. And so if it's there, it's going to come out. It's just, again, it's just a gamble.
Greg, what do you remember about draft night?
Wow, it still brings a smile on my face. You know what? It's the realization of a dream. Every kid in there has dreamt of this night and the opportunity.
And lots of them who never make it there.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable feeling. And even though you know you're there and you're in the draft room, you still are anxious. There's a lot of anxiety until you actually hear your name called. But it's a moment that will stay with you forever. I said it's the biggest night of those kids' life, and then I had to correct myself, say with the exception of Big Blue Nation, because those kids won a national championship, much like I was fortunate enough to do. Winning that national championship is probably the only thing that would supersede that. But it's an unbelievable experience for you, and those are great memories. All those guys are going to always be connected together now, being in that draft class of 2012.
So as you know, Drummond, like every other player, can go either way. He can get caught up in all the stuff I talked about earlier, or he can get to work and make himself better and have a long career. What would your advice be to him to have the latter fate?
Pick up your energy level. You know, he's a guy that has to rely on what he does well. Block shots, run the floor, but pick your energy level up, young man. Everything will fall in place.
All right, we're back to wrap it up right after this. Synchronize your timepieces. Free agency begins at midnight Sunday. That's Saturday night. Really? We're all over the frenzy beginning Saturday night at 7 Eastern time and back at midnight when the free agency period begins. We're tweeting. Actually, Chris Paul is tweeting. To all the rookies out there, congrats, he writes, to all the 2012 draft picks. Welcome to the best job in the world. Hard to argue. As you look at the Eastern Conference landscape, who helped themselves most draft night?
No, I think Philly had a really good draft. I like what they did, adding Harkless and then getting Moultrie. Two more hard-working lunch pail guys that fit right into the Doug Collins culture.
I agree with you. I like Philly, but I love what Boston did in getting Sullinger and getting a guy like Melo, a defensive presence, athletic, runs the floor, clogs up the middle.
Both you guys are right on. I think those two really stand out for me. I'll tell you another team that did great in this year's draft, the Miami Heat. They had a great draft this year. They had a really good draft.
Winning all helps, doesn't it?
I'm telling you, man.
Hey,
that GM look real good, don't it?
Free agency on the way. Time to reevaluate. We'll talk to you soon, everybody.
With the first pick in the 2012 NBA Draft, the New Orleans Hornets select Anthony Davis.
Didn't see that coming, did you? Well, it's official anyway. The Bayou Brow is on the prowl, and we welcome you to the Western Conference Draft Recap Show as we take stock of those teams and their picks from the Western Conference. Vince Cellini alongside TNT's David Aldridge, NBA TV contributor Ron Thompson, and NBA TV's Greg Anthony. So the day after, we start at the top. Always a good place to start. The New Orleans Hornets, they had number 1 and 10 in the draft, and those guys hit the Crescent City on Friday. Anthony Davis, Austin Rivers, and there is a buzz.
It's a great opportunity for both of us. Can't wait to get started, get in the gym, start working real hard. For me, unfortunately for Austin, I won a national title here. So just to come back, try to win another one, world championship with the Hornets. Mr. Benson, GM Dad, I just want to say thank you. Having faith in me, along with Coach Williams, having faith in picking me, just ready to get the season started.
I'm very excited to be here and play in New Orleans. This is no doubt the city I wanted to play in. I think this team is definitely on the rise, and we have pieces here, and we're going to keep getting better. And I promise, I know me and Anthony are going to come in here and do our best and work hard to keep rebuilding this team.
To have two guys like Anthony and Austin in our family, and I don't use that word loosely. This is our family, this is our program. I feel privileged and honored to have these young men, and I also feel a responsibility to help them become successful. And they won't like me all the time. This might be the last day that they like me, but I want the parents to know that we take it seriously, and we're going to do our best to make them the best basketball players and people.
That's a nice message. Now, we live in a world of hype, and you've heard Anthony Davis compared to Bill Russell, the great Bill Russell. So, Ron, how do we manage expectations, and what do you think those expectations are in New Orleans?
I think that you need to be realistic. To compare someone to Bill Russell, I think is just crazy. But like Bill Russell, he's a shot blocker. He's a guy that affects the game without having to have the ball in his hands. I really do believe that Anthony Davis is an underrated offensive player, though. However, people just talk about his defensive prowess, but he's a guy that can hit the mid-range 15-foot jump shot. He has a jump hook around the post, and I think you'll see that game develop and expand as he grows in the NBA.
Is that what you're looking for, more offense?
I think his offensive game, much like Ronnie just talked about, he is better. Remember, when you play on a really good team, oftentimes you're not asked to do as much as you're capable of doing. Remember, he played with 3 other first-rounders and 2 second-rounders, so that was a tremendous amount of talent on that roster. And like the great Bill Russell, he is a national champion. So that's the only aspect you can compare to Bill Russell at this stage. But his ability, I think, to impact the game on both ends will continue to grow. This is a unique talent, and I think a guy that is destined for superstardom.
Mm-hmm. Eric Gordon comes back into the mix. If he does, is New Orleans, David, a place where you could maybe lure veteran players, try to get more help in there?
Well, you could. I mean, obviously, with Eric Gordon and the 2 rookies, you could have a really nice young nucleus there. You just wonder, and I continue to wonder this because I'm a reporter and a skeptic, whether Tom Benson, the new owner, is going to spend. You know, I mean, this is a guy who, again, and I hate to point this out and be the negative guy, but he's having a hard time getting Drew Brees signed. And Drew Brees only came there after Hurricane Katrina and won a Super Bowl. You know, so if anybody on earth is supposed to get paid, it's Drew Brees, and he seems to be having a problem getting what he wants. So you hope that Tom Benson will be able to handle both payrolls and be able to take care of both teams. And if he can, it could certainly be a wonderful destination. I think they've got a good young structure in place. Dell Demps, the GM, and Monty Williams, their coaching and GM's positions are solid. And I think people will want to play with Anthony Davis and Austin Rivers and Eric Gordon, but they still want to get paid.
Yeah, well, doesn't everybody?
Yeah. I do.
Sure. Austin Rivers, how much do you see him, Greg, at the 2 guard? How much do you see him sort of at the point? Because I'm sure they'd love to get Eric Gordon and Rivers on the floor at the same time.
And I think they will. Listen, he has the ability to run a pick and roll. He has the ability to make a lot of the plays that not necessarily a point guard, but that a lead guard needs to make. But ultimately, he's going to score the basketball as well. And you know what? Frankly, they need him to score it. He's going to have to do that. They're not going to ask him to become something that he's not. He is a combination guard. He can play some point. No, he didn't do it at Duke, but he wasn't asked to do it. He had to score in order for Duke to have a chance. So when you're more aggressive offensively, you tend to not be as efficient. I think he'll be a little bit more efficient as a pro, and I think you'll see his game prosper as he gets more opportunity.
And let's go a little deeper in Austin Rivers going there. Monty Williams and Doc Rivers had a relationship together, so he's known Austin Rivers since Austin was in grade school. And, you know, you're from a basketball family. You know how much that means in terms of, you know, structure.
Well, Monty has had the luxury of knowing this young man since he was a baby. He saw him grow. He saw his maturation process. He played for and with his dad. So if he has any questions, if he wants to know how to push his buttons to get him to respond, or if he wants to know little things about, you know, am I pushing him too hard, or little things that a coach really wants to know to get the best out of his player, all he has to do is pick up the phone, that is Monty Williams, and call and talk to his former coach, which is his dad. So he has a huge luxury that a lot of coaches, I'm sure, wish they had, and now you have a talented player like an Austin Rivers, and now you have an inside track on how to make this engine go even better than it already can go. Heck of a luxury.
Monty Williams said that he likes the fact that Austin Rivers has a little jerk in him. And he means that in a good way.
Yeah,
good jerk.
Yeah.
Good jerk. So who wants to expand on that one?
Well, you got to be arrogant.
Yes.
Look, you're playing against Kobe Bryant. You're playing against Kevin Durant. You're playing against LeBron James. They're killers. They'll cut your heart out and show it to you. You got to have that same kind of feeling that you can compete with those guys. Now, you can't go off the reservation and go nuts with it, and that's where Monty Williams, I think, is great, because Monty will, I think, bring him back down to earth and keep him kind of on the straight and narrow. But in the pros, there's nothing wrong with being confident. In fact, you have to be confident. I mean, you would speak to that better than I could.
Absolutely, D.A. You hit it on the point. And also keep in mind, in order to be great, you know, not everybody wants to be great in the NBA. Some guys just want to be good. And so in order to be great, you got to be a bit of a jerk. You know, you're going to tick some people off, but it means you're really ultra competitive. You know, some players, once you've beaten them, they defer. They accept the fact that you're better. The great ones, if you beat them, they go back to the drawing board and they want to figure out a way to beat you the next time out. And I think that's what Austin Rivers has in his DNA, and I think it will serve him well at the professional level.
By the way, on the second round, pick number 46, that was that Washington pick in the trade for Ariza Okafor. They get Darius Miller from Kentucky. And Ron, he was kind of considered maybe the glue guy in that championship as a senior.
Well, he was the guy that when Kentucky went through their rough patches early, he was the one guy that was there. When Calipari comes in and brings in all the McDonald's All-Americans, he didn't mind downshifting for the betterment of the organization. And a lot of people forgot about this guy. He came off the bench, did the little things, did whatever he had to do, was the glue guy, filled in that emotional, mature position that they really needed for him to play. And what better way than to get a guy that understands sacrifice. And Monty Williams said, and the organization said, that they talked to Davis about him, and all he did was gloat about how much he really liked playing for this guy and how this young man helped his development at Kentucky.
Another guy in a good situation. We're going to measure more good jerk levels as the show continues. Coming up on the Western Conference Draft Recap Show, a night of mixed emotions for Thomas Robinson, why things didn't play out exactly as planned for the Kansas Star. With most mock drafts, Thomas Robinson was number 2 overall, but not Thursday. He slid a bit to 5th and was chosen by Sacramento and later overcome by emotion when speaking to our Craig Sager.
Well, rounding out the top 5, Thomas Robinson of Kansas goes to the Sacramento Kings. Obviously, we talked to you all past couple of days, you know where you're going, kind of overcome with emotion.
Yeah, took over everything.
Just the thought of your dream coming true, and maybe some of people that you're so close to, like your mom, grandparents, not here to share it with you.
Exactly.
When you think about what you've accomplished, how much have you worked so hard and improved every year, what thoughts are back in your mind right now?
I earned this. I worked for it. That's it. Can't nobody take that from me.
Obviously, your mom's not here, but she is watching. What would you tell her right now?
I kept my promise. I told her I was going to do it.
You did. Congratulations. Have a great career.
Thank you.
Wow, that's tough to watch, actually. But, you know, it's been an interesting year for Robinson, whose team's chasing Kentucky in the final. He's sort of chasing Anthony Davis. They're going neck and neck for Player of the Year, chasing him into the draft, and Davis is chosen number 1. Not that he needs motivation, but what are you expecting with Sacramento?
I think they're going to get a high-energy, maximum output kind of player. Listen, we all love the game of basketball, whether it be college or pro, and I don't think you could be any more of a fan of a player than you have to be of Thomas Robinson. Just the overall work ethic. Remember, this is a guy that didn't get the opportunity early on. He had to back up the Morris twins there. And he finally got his opportunity. What I love about him, he was prepared to take advantage of it. You know, he worked himself out. He got in great shape. He's a physical specimen, and he's going to have an impact. I think he's also going to help DeMarcus Cousins because it's hard not to compete when you play alongside a competitor like Thomas Robinson.
When you look at this guy, he's the type of guy you end up finding yourself rooting for. You know, even if you don't know basketball, when you watch him play, he makes you appreciate what he's doing out there on the floor just because he goes so hard. And, you know, when he played against guys, I would cringe because I would feel the pounding that he's giving them on the inside. You know, he plays that hard.
They really felt it.
No question. He plays that hard with that much intensity every single night. And then you couple in everything that he's been through. He's so mature. I tell you what, when you look at this young man, he went 5th. There were 4 teams that chose before SAC that didn't take him. I bet you each one of those teams were sincerely scratching their head, even if they needed a 2-guard and they didn't really need a power forward. They knew he was still there. Are we making a mistake by not taking this guy? This is how hard and how dedicated he is to the game.
And now he heads to the culture of Sacramento, which do you think a rookie can help influence that? Or
absolutely. Somebody who plays that hard every night, yes, it gets everybody's attention. Look, they got lucky last year. They got a great young player in Isaiah Thomas who performed way above where he was taken in the draft. So to the point where they think they're set at point guard. They feel good about their point guards now. So they weren't even looking at Lillard or any of the other guys. To have a guy as talented and as hardworking as Robinson fall into your lap, now you're really starting to turn the corner in terms of rebuilding this thing. It was Tariq Evans kind of being the first guy in. Well, now there's a lot more talent around Tariq Evans, so a lot of pressure will be taken off of him. And you can see the shape of a new Sacramento Kings team taking place. Hey, but it's all about DeMarcus Cousins. If he brings it the way he brought it at times his second season, they're going to be a very difficult team to play a lot of nights in this league.
Well, right after Robinson, the Blazers made the first of their 2 lottery picks, and with the 6th pick, and that was obtained in the Gerald Wallace to the Nets deal, Damian Lillard of Weber State, 2-time Big Sky MVP, fills a need for Portland, as did their next selection at 11. At 11, the Blazers snagged the 2nd center taken, Myers Leonard, out of Illinois, 7-footer coming off his sophomore year. And in the 2nd round, at pick number 40, Will Barton, who had a great career at Memphis. So this is interesting, D.A., because Neil O'Shea, his first big moves as the GM in Portland, it's sort of like he borrowed from his previous game plan.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the team that he had with the Clippers, it was a team that was going to be athletic and able to play multiple positions, different people on the floor. He wants to resurrect that with his team in Portland. Now, they only had 2 guys on the board at number 6. There was Waiters and Lillard. Once Waiters went to Cleveland, their decision was made for them. They just think Lillard's got a chance to be a special one. And then with Leonard, they just thought he was more athletic than Tyler Zeller or John Henson or any of the other guys. And they want to play up and down the floor with LaMarcus Aldridge, who can post up but can also step out to the top of the key and shoot. They want to have bigs that can run. And now they're finally past the Oden era. They're finally past the Brandon Roy era. And they want to have a young, athletic team going forward that can really get up and down.
And we talk about Myers Leonard and his emotions, over-emotions sometimes on the floor, but I'd rather have a guy that's emotional that I have to crank down a little bit than crank up.
Absolutely. And the other thing about him, he's now going to play with a lot of skill and will. You know, there was a little bit of dysfunction with that Illini group over the last couple seasons, and that, in essence, did him a disservice. I truly believe that's not going to be the case now. I think he'll have an opportunity to flourish as a basketball player. But going back to Damian Lillard, I'm with you there, D.A. I think he could have the biggest impact of any rookie in this year's class. And that says a lot, because Anthony Davis is going to be big, Waiters and Beal, Barnes, all these guys are going to play, and I think play well. But you know what, he might be the most polished player for his position in the entire draft. And so Portland's got to be feeling real good about what they accomplished with their 3 picks this season.
Yeah, you always want to be strong up the middle. In any sport.
That's right.
They got their point, they got a center in good shape. Now, number 7, the Warriors had a decision to make, and they stuck to their guns in drafting Harrison Barnes of North Carolina. Talented small forward, he can score the basketball. Barnes is ready to get to work, and his coach demands just that.
The biggest thing I'm focusing on is just adapting to the speed of the game. I mean, as soon as I can get out there, as soon as I can get acclimated with the coaches and the players, I think that's where I'll develop the team chemistry. So that's the biggest thing I'm focusing on right now.
He's the one guy that we sat with and could break down our team from top to bottom. Loves the game, is a student of the game, and wants to get better. We're excited to have him. We think he's a natural small forward, the ability to score, and it just it fell into our laps.
So this is the Golden Hall after Barnes, the last pick of the first round, Nigerian-born Festus Ezeli, who worked himself from project at Vandy to a first-round pick. Good for him. Draymond Green, he's going to be another blue-collar guy. There's another guy with something to prove, and Jackson will like him. And another center in the final pick. Where is Adam Silver when I need him for that name? Born in Bosnia, playing in the Spanish League.
Just call him Dr. K. That's what everybody calls him.
All right, Dr. K.
Dr. K.
Good enough. Another big guy. But let's start with Barnes. And how do you expect him to fit here at NBA level?
I really like his game. I think he's 6'8". He can shoot the ball, so he has a specific skill. He can put the ball on the floor 1 or 2 times to get the spots. He has the fadeaway jump shot. He elevates on his jump shot. He has the fadeaway. But what does he have to work on? He needs to work on being a little bit more creative off the bounce, but I think that will come in time. He's a solid defender. You know, a lot was made out of when he came out of high school to college, he was supposed to be the next Michael Jordan. It was so much pressure put on him to be better than he actually performed, but he performed solidly. Yeah. He averaged 17 points a game this past year on a team that was loaded, and he still found a way. I like his, and I think he has an upside still as well.
Yeah, what's the ceiling for him, Greg?
You know what, I think he could be an all-star. And listen, I love him as well. I think the one issue, though, is when you look at him, his measurables athletically were well above average. But the problem is he's not the quickest or most explosive player. He's a little bit more methodical, and when you play that way, it doesn't allow that athletic ability to shine. And so I think that's going to be some of the areas where he's got to improve. But listen, he is polished. You know, he does. He's the ability to create his own shot off of 2 dribbles. He's a solid passer. But I think those are the areas. Playing with good players will help him, as we saw at Carolina. And he's going to play with some skilled players for Golden State, and he's going to get coached up by Mark Jackson.
Man, it looks like they got some big players, too, in Golden State, which they needed. Needed some beef inside. We're going to step away now. When we come back on the Western Conference Draft Review Show, Houston Rockets, well, they were a big player at the draft. 3 first-round picks for Kevin McHale. They've been taken, but will they stay or will they go? We'll hear from the Rockets head coach next. The Houston Rockets had 3 picks in the first 18, and they came away with a strong group, starting with the smoothie from UConn, Jeremy Lamb, Mr. Do-It-All, Royce White of Iowa State, and the athletic Terrence Jones of Kentucky, part of that championship contingent in Lexington. Houston has numbers, and they have decisions to make. Joining us now from Toyota Center is the head coach of the Houston Rockets, Kevin McHale. Kevin, it's Vince in Atlanta. Listen, what a busy night, but it looks like you made quite a haul, didn't you?
Yeah, we're really happy. You know, we had 3 picks. I was a little bit leery and still am about adding 3 rookies to the team, but we picked 3 guys we really like, and you know, the draft night's a fun, exciting night. The reality of it is that next fall, when you get going in October, start playing games in November, the NBA is pretty rough on young guys, and so our young guys are going to have to grow up pretty quick.
Yeah, and these are young guys, some of them. Let's start with Jeremy Lamb, who was your top pick at number 12. What impressed you about his game, and what can you see him doing for the Houston Rockets?
Well, he can score the ball. You know, he's got length. You know, you look back to 2 years ago when he made that run with UConn in the NCAA tournament, just scoring big baskets at big times. I like his ability to get the shot off with his length, and he needs to get stronger. We need to get him more focused on defense and rebounding and loose balls and stuff like that. But Jeremy's got a really bright future. I like his shot. I like his length. I like his basketball feel, and so he's a young guy, but he's really got a big upside.
At 16, it's Royce White, and it's very interesting because we know he's had the issue with the anxiety problems, but I heard you talking about him in a broadcast, and you said you like him because he's different. What did you mean by that?
He really is different. It just is a guy that he's a playmaking power forward. He's a pass-first power forward. He's a guy that breaks people down, gets in the paint, can finish himself around the basket, but really is a pass-first guy. And there's very few times, most power forwards are just standard back to the basket, or anymore in our league now, they become a spread four that are just making threes. He's like a driving, attacking four. He gets every defensive rebound he gets for us. We're going to want him to take that ball the length of the court and attack. Forget the outlet. You just be outlet man. You dribble it up and you attack. He's got great vision, and it's a unique package for a guy his size. You just don't see that often, and so he's definitely a different player. It will be a bit of a challenge to figure out how to put him in spots to let him be really successful, because he's just not a standard player. He's just different. He needs the ball in his hands. He can drive. He can post. He posts up to pass out of the post. If you don't come, he's strong enough to get in there and finish. So I'm looking forward to being creative with him and finding out kind of what he can do for us, but I really like his potential.
Kevin, before we let you go, do you anticipate all of these guys staying with the Houston Rockets? Because certainly now, roster-wise, you have options, and having options means that, a deal could be somewhere in the offing in the future.
Yeah, I would say that there's a great chance that they'll be here, but you never know. You're right. We have a lot of different things we're looking at, and free agency starts a couple days from now. And yeah, we do have some duplication, as you said earlier, Vince. There's no question that we have a lot of power forwards. We got some twos and threes that are kind of a little bit the same. So we have some things that we can do, and some pieces that we can move that maybe we can try to add another piece or a different piece to our puzzle. But we're excited about it, and if they all come to camp, we'll find a way to let them compete. And the NBA is the Serengeti Plains, it's the survival of the fittest. Not playing everybody, so they're gonna have to go let them beat themselves up, and whoever is walking at the end will play.
Yeah, a little Roman Coliseum comes to Houston. I like it.
I like that attitude right there, Vince.
All right, take care. Kevin McHale, thanks for the time.
Okay.
Win the crowd, and you will win your roster spot. All right, let's get serious. Jeremy Lamb, obviously a talented player, and I mean, again, the comparisons we're talking about, maybe a future Reggie Miller, that may be out there in the future somewhere too far, but for now.
Well, he has to acquire Reggie's motor.
Right.
You know, Reggie's a guy that had athleticism, had length, had the ability to shoot, but he brought it every single night. Jeremy Lamb has all the skills. He can put the ball on the deck. He can create his own shot. He can get to spots on the floor. He's long. He's athletic. He can defend. But at times this year, he just seemed disinterested in basketball. He didn't seem plugged into the game. He disappeared on the court. And he has far too many skills to allow that to happen. He's got to lock in, be focused, and let everyone see on a consistent basis his ability to shoot the ball, his energy level rise, because he can do a lot of things on the floor.
Yeah, like I said before, he's a smooth player. That's for sure. With Royce White, there is a lot to like with him, but they're the well-publicized anxiety issues, among them fear of flying. How much of a problem do you see?
I think the flying thing will be okay. I mean, he flew in college. He didn't like it, but he flew. I mean, that's what you have to do. So I think that part will be okay. There are other things that have happened, but, he's a really unique guy, and I mean person. And I think that's a good thing, and I like that. And I think he's going to be a guy that a lot of people are going to like when they get to know him. And his skill set is really unusual for a guy his size with his...
Led his team in 5 categories.
Yeah, I mean, you can play point forward with this guy. There's a lot of things you can do with him. He's a great, Ginsu knife to have that you can just kind of throw all kinds of different stuff at people with. I like that. He's just a
Ginsu knife.
The Ginsu.
Yeah.
Greg, and
finally, maybe I meant Swiss Army knife.
And finally, Jones. What will he contribute here if he stays?
Will he be Ginsu-like?
Will he be Swiss Army knife?
Chop, chop. You know what? I think all 3 of these guys, the word that sticks out for me is versatility, because they all are multi-dimensional, and Terrence Jones, without a doubt, a guy at 6'8", 6'9", he's kind of a hybrid. He can play some 3, he can play some 4, shot blocking, ability to attack off the dribble. And you know what? I just think that he has a chance to be really good at the next level. Potentially maybe the best of the 3, just when you look at what he is physically and the fact that his motor is a little higher than the other 2 guys. Although Royce White does play with a high motor, his skill set really complements those guys. They got great versatility with these 3 guys. The question is, how good will they be? Are they good enough to be a core nucleus to build around, or are they going to be more complementary pieces as they start trying to maybe look to do some other things to improve that roster?
We said this as it relates to a few of the Kentucky guys, but Terrence Jones, if he were on another team, that 12 and 7 rebounds could easily be 24 and 12 rebounds. Yeah. He's that kind of a player. His numbers could have been through the roof if he was on another club.
It's going to be one of the great camps to watch in Houston, should some of these guys still stick around. Moving on, the Phoenix Suns. They added 1 man and 1 man only on Thursday night. Carolina point guard Kendall Marshall. The big question is he the understudy, or is he the new man at quarterback, or is he in the battle for new man at quarterback? Probably is. Marshall, Nash, that whole dynamic, how will it play out? But I look at him, Greg, as a point. He's sort of like the throwback point because he's a facilitator, but now we have this attacking point mentality in the NBA. Can he bring some of that or bring some of that to his game?
Well, I think what's most important for Kendall is to be who he is. He's not a great offensive player, but he's a good basketball player. And so as long as he plays to his strengths, he's as good as anybody at kicking the ball ahead. He's excellent in the pick and roll. He's a terrific decision maker. And offensively, he'll have to get better just because of the nature of the NBA game. But I have no problem with him developing that aspect of his game. When you look at young players, the first thing you want to see is do they have the ability to improve? And he's already shown he's got that ability. If you look at how much he's improved from his freshman year to now, it's been leaps and bounds. And so I don't think there's any doubt he has a chance to be a solid contributor on a good team in the NBA.
I had a chance to see him grow up in D.C. Saw him play an awful lot in high school, And each year, he's still trying to prove to people that he can do something that everyone's saying he can't. When he committed to Carolina, you know, Tywan Lawson used to push it. You know, I don't know if he's as good. He's kind of slow. What does he do? He goes to Carolina, has a stellar career, second in the ACC in assists at 9 a game, almost averages a double-double. You know, his speed doesn't become a factor. Well, can he shoot the ball? He knocks down open shots. He shoots the shots he needs to shoot. As we've been saying all day, he stays within himself. He does what he does well. This is a guy that just finds a way to succeed. There's something about those guys from the D.C. area. I don't know. Robinson.
I tend to agree with you.
I knew you would. Before we move on, Nash, what do you make it leaving, staying, kind of as a 50-50?
Look, I think it's going to be very hard for him to stay in Phoenix. I mean, I just don't see it. He wants to see if the team is going to make some moves in free agency. They say they're going to be aggressive in free agency. The one thing that Phoenix has going for them, and it's probably the best thing, is that Steve Nash is an incredibly loyal guy, and he's very, very fond of and has great feelings for the city of Phoenix for taking him when a lot of people, Mark Cuban, thought he couldn't play anymore at a high level. And so that means something to him, and so that's going to be a big part of his decision.
It would be wonderful to see Marshall work with him, be able to learn at the hand of Steve Nash. The Denver Nuggets, well, they made Evan Fournier the first international player chosen in the draft. 19-year-old Frenchman, solid wing player, athletic. And then Quincy Miller, small forward from Baylor. Baylor had a lot of good players.
Ooh. Talent.
Give me that second round. Yeah.
Is that Turkey Yilmaz?
Izzy. They call him Izzy.
Izzy. Of Turkey, power forward. So the Denver Nuggets, going international, they do that.
Yeah, they do.
Have some international.
They do. And Fournier was the only international player that really had a chance to be a definite first-round pick. He's not the most athletic guy in the world. He's not the best shooter in the world, but he's a pretty good basketball player. So from that standpoint, you know, the French team in the last 10 years or so has brought some pretty good players to the NBA. You think about Tony Parker and Diaw and some of the other guys. They've been pretty good. So, you know, this guy's going to get a look. I don't know how many minutes he's going to get right away because of Ty Lawson and some of the guys they have there. But he'll be there and he'll learn and probably learn to play a little off guard as well.
Yeah, well, you see him driving to the basket in the video we showed here,
Yeah.
but of course going to have to work on the outside shot.
A little bit.
Don't they all?
A little bit.
Coming up, the Oklahoma City Thunder with a disappointing finish to their season, but perhaps Kevin Durant and company coming up with the steal of the first round. This just might be PJ3's salvation. The Dallas Mavericks did some dealing with Cleveland, swapping number ones and scoring some value, big value in the second round. The Mavs hand over UNC center Tyler Zeller and then use Cleveland's 24th pick for Jared Cunningham of Oregon State. And in round two, they go back-to-back. Bernard James, what a great story, 27 years old, an Air Force vet. And Jay Crowder of Marquette, a tough kid. He's going to give him some beef, some muscle. So let's start with Cunningham. Thoughts on that pick for the Mavs?
Offensive-minded, you know, started the season off playing, DA, we were talking about this, playing some shooting guard, but then he kind of moved over to the point to try and prove that he has the ability to be a lead guard, a decision maker. I like his motor, again, from an offensive standpoint. He's very, very crafty. He gets to the free throw line. He can make open shots. You know, he knows how to play basketball. And I tell you what, he's one of those guys, he wants to put the ball in the basket, you know. And so I think this is a young man who will help space the floor for Dallas as well, which is going to be important for a team that is getting a bit longer in the tooth.
He's long, but he's a little thin. He's going to have to beef up a little bit, as do a lot of the players who enter the league. Crowder, Big East Player of the Year, former football guy from the Atlanta area. So he's another guy that I think he's going to help.
He was Dallas's last selection, but let me tell you, he's going to make their decision very hard. You know, I mean, I don't want to guard him in practice. I mean, he comes at you, he's full throttle. He's not just a physical presence. He can play. He has skills. He can put the ball on the floor. He can score. He does every single thing with aggression. Full speed, top speed. He can knock down the open jump shot. He's the kind of guy in practice, if you're a veteran, you look and like, come on, I got to go against him again. like he's going to make their decision very, very difficult on whether they keep him or let him go.
Another terrific
Love what he brings. My brother is absolutely ecstatic that he's gone from Marquette now to the Big East. He's one of those guys that when you're watching game film, you're just like, I'm just tired of seeing this guy. It's all over the tape, everywhere.
Yeah, JT3 saying, okay, go.
Yes, please go.
Enjoy your pro
That's
career.
Right.
Memphis selected at 25, and they went for a freshman, Tony Roten Jr. of Washington. Good athlete. He's got that look, but he's been somewhat inconsistent. An example, he missed some big free throws in the final seconds of the Pac-12 quarterfinal game against Oregon State. And he shoots under 60% at the line, which is weird. But his presence is enough that Memphis has reacted.
Well, I mean, they were going to do this anyway. They drafted him because they knew they were going to. They didn't tender O.J. Mayo with a qualifying offer on Friday, and that means he's going to be an unrestricted free agent, which means he's gone. You know, he's not going to be there. And Mayo was obviously a key part of their team the last few years. But look, the reality is they gave Rudy Gay a big extension. They gave Zach Randolph a big extension. They gave Marc Gasol a big extension. They gave Mike Conley a big extension. There's no more extensions.
They're out of big
Out of extensions.
They've extended.
They're extended. That's it. So they're done. And so Tony Roten will come in and try to replace some of what O.J. Mayo did for them off the bench.
Well, he was voted all-conference, and I'm sure he's going to develop. But at that position, you're going to have to tighten up the screws a little bit, huh?
He will, but you know what? This is one of those guys at the end of the first round from an upside. He has tremendous value because I tell you what, I thought he regressed from his senior year in high school to his freshman year in college. He has uncanny vision on the floor. I equate him a lot, from my standpoint, to a Rajon Rondo type. You know, he's really long, he's really athletic, he can play, you know, he can play some two guard as well. Now,
I know he's a point guard. But
yeah, but he is a point guard. Right. The issue with him is really his decision making and the immaturity. And that's something, some people have problems with it. If he were a senior, I would have a problem with it. But the fact that he's basically a freshman, I want to see if he can mature. And I think that's a good environment for him because that's a winning culture there. Lionel Hollins is a no-nonsense coach, a former lefty point guard as well, which will, I think, well, you know, those guys tend to be smart. So I think it will help him, though, in his maturation process. And I tell you, Mike Conley Jr. will help him as well because he's learned and really evolved into a much more consistent point guard over the duration of his career.
Okay, let's get to Oklahoma City. Choosing at 28, they're in need of some inside help, and the Thunder go with a guy who is regionally close in Baylor's Perry Jones III, and he became that guy who fell in the first round because they were talking about, you know, lottery pick for him. Greg, I want to go back to you about his talents here and what you see happening as he'll hook up with the Thunder.
Listen, I think he's a top 5 talent. I really believe physically he is that gifted. Now, keep in mind, when I watched him in high school, this kid was a perimeter player. You know, then he went to Baylor, and then all of a sudden they put him at the center and put him down below the ball, and really the basket and kind of took the ball out of his hands. He never really got an opportunity to flourish. Now, granted, a lot of that is on him. He's got to be more assertive and aggressive. But I tell you the other thing I love about this, he gets to go and play with two not only young superstars, but two of the hardest working, most professional, high character superstars in Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. That's going to really help his development. And that's when you'll get to see if he is as good as everyone advertised coming out of high school. I happen to think he is, but he's going to get the opportunity to prove it for OKC.
Yeah, your last point's a good one. He is walking into a situation where these guys are smarting after what happened to the finals, and it is going to be all business.
All business. So you better bring it every day.
I spoke this morning with assistant GM Troy Weaver, and he said that aside from him being ultra talented and versatile, and as Greg mentioned, he's a top 5 talent in this draft. He said that what put them over the top is through all their research, they found out that he was a great teammate. And with the chemistry that they have at Oklahoma, they don't want to disrupt that. They are known for, except for, you know, what we perceived as a rift between Durant and Westbrook. As a team, they've been cohesive. They work hard. They go out together. They hang out together. They didn't want to disrupt that, and they said that he's a great teammate as well as an ultra talent.
Now, once again, this may be a blessing in disguise for PJ3 getting there. Coming up, the very latest on a move that could boost the Clippers and help a reality TV show at the same time. Will Lamar Odom return to Los Angeles?
Chloe!
Why his trade?
Chloe!
I'm just saying.
Chloe!
It's franchise reunion time for a pair of veteran players as part of a 4-team deal as Dallas gets financial relief with Lamar Odom sent back to the Clippers, who drafted him back in 1999, 4th overall. Dallas gets a trade exception in cash from Houston. The Rockets receive the rights to Furkan Aldemir, the Clippers' second-round pick just the night before. Mo Williams heads to Utah, the team that drafted him in 2003. Everybody got that?
Yep.
Okay, so Mavs getting some help, some relief.
They did this to clear cap room. Otherwise, they would have had to have bought Lamar, or waived Lamar Odom, I should say. And by doing this, they saved the full $8.2 million that they would have had to use otherwise. They clear that cap room off. Now they really are trying to get as much room as possible for Deron Williams. They're going to be on his doorstep at 12:01 a.m. And this allows them to do that. And it's a pretty good salvage for them, because if they get Deron Williams, it's probably been worth having the bad year with Lamar Odom.
Yeah, I would say so. And it was bad. From sixth man of the year to like this 50-game crazy appearance. He was there, he really wasn't there. So what does this do for Lamar?
I think it's going to improve the reality TV scene. Now, listen, I think there's a conference. Everyone knows that this is a guy that never really accepted leaving L.A. And listen, he had bad blood with the Clippers when he left it. That didn't end very harmoniously, but I think that will be resolved, and I think the fact that he gets an opportunity to go back. More importantly, if he's Lamar Odom, what a huge get for the Clippers. Because, I mean, boy, you talk about a serious front line. He gives them what they don't have as much of on the front line from a skill set. His versatility, I think he'll play very nicely with both Jordan and obviously Blake Griffin.
All right, thought on Mo Williams returning to the Jazz. What does Mo bring there?
Mo brings a little bit of everything. He can handle the ball. He can play some lead guard. He can score the ball. He's a guy, when you put together scouting reports, you have to prepare for him. He's not just going to be a guy that's going to be there to distribute the ball. I like the fact that Mo brings a competitive way about him each and every night on the basketball court.
All right, so a boost for the Jazz in that regard. Let's continue on talking about the Jazz and take a look at their selection from the night before in the NBA draft. And that selection was Kevin Murphy of Tennessee Tech. Senior guard and forward, leading scorer in the Ohio Valley Conference. He once had a 50-point game, so never know.
Look,
guy can
he
shoot
can
it.
Score. And they have a history of getting guys from smaller schools that people don't know about.
Second-round picks like Mo Williams.
Yeah, they can get John Stockton.
Yeah.
You know.
More picks now. Minnesota gets Purdue's Robbie Hummel. And if he's healthy, he can help them. That is a good story. And the Spurs getting Missouri's Marcus Denman, and the Lakers purchase from the Mavs Darius Johnson-Odom, and they get a center in Gonzaga's Robert Sacre, who's a 7-footer.
Yes.
Now we're going to step away, but coming up, the Rivers run through Newark to New Orleans. The family journey continues as Doc plays dad and not coach on draft night. It won't be long now. Summer League starts July 9th and runs through July 22nd, beginning in Orlando, ending in Las Vegas. See many of the top rookie players compete for the first time as pros. Catch games on NBA TV and on broadband. Check out NBA.com/Summer League Broadband for full information. Right now, a young man born into the league. It's Rivers Revisited.
The 2012 NBA Draft, the New Orleans Hornets select Austin Rivers.
Nice to meet you. That's Hornets deal. That's not good deal. Okay? Congratulations. That's great. Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Rivers, my idol. What's up, yo? Congratulations. Congrats, man. So you getting emotional? Hey, Rivers, be in here. Yes, sir. Good job, bro. Sir. Hell yeah. Congrats, dog. You gonna be with AD, though? Yeah. That's gonna be tough. That's gonna be tough.
My whole life, it's almost been a tease. I've been there firsthand, but I actually, never actually been the player. I've gotten to see how the players, prepare themselves, how they how they live, what games are like, what big games are like, and I've wanted it so bad, and I've just worked so hard, and my family's helped me, and with God, now I'm here, and that's what I look forward to, just going out there and playing basketball. My dad's he was more relaxed. He just told me to relax, enjoy it. You're going to get picked somewhere. He told me when I play him, I'm not going to score, so that's basically what he told me. This is an amazing opportunity just to be here and to get drafted to a great organization. Coach Monty Williams is a great coach. They got Anthony coming. We have a great city. I'm looking forward to going there and working hard and helping out the community and doing everything I can to help this organization win.
By the way, Thursday was the anniversary to the day of Austin's father, Doc Rivers, being drafted in 1983 by the Atlanta Hawks in the second round. Some of the all-time father and son combinations. And Greg, anybody in particular you
they all stick out, really. Obviously, Kobe's on that list, but Luke Walton, Mike Bibby playing along. They look great to me, right?
I like John and Brent Berry. That combo. I like that crew.
Dell and Steph Curry.
Tito,
and Al?
And Michael.
Wrong. Not right. We'll be back with a final word on the show in just a moment. So keep it right here. The Horford Five?
Yeah.
The next big order of business, free agency, as the calendar turns to July 1. And we are here for you to set it up with a Free Agent Fever preview Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And then, 12 midnight, it's official. Free agency begins.
God.
Free Agent Fever.
Get ready, DA.
Is here. Yeah, DA, what do you got on that?
Oh, God.
Well, for now, I want you to stay in this mode.
Yep.
Draft mode. You know what? We could have some real surprises in this draft stepping up.
Well, I'd say I really like. New Orleans had a good draft. I think they had a really good night. I think they did addressed needs, but just changing the whole, turning the page of that franchise from the Chris Paul era. That's now over. Now it's the Anthony Davis era and maybe the Austin Rivers era, and that's a good thing for that franchise.
What do you think, Ron, about this draft and moving forward now?
There were some surprises. I really liked the job that certain teams did, like Boston. I don't think anyone thought that they could get the quality of pick that they got at 21 in a Sullinger. A guy like Fab Melo, he'll be able to help. Everyone knew that Davis would go first, but did everyone know that they'd get Davis and then back it up and be able to get a quality guy like an Austin Rivers? So there are a lot of teams that panned out well, and a lot of people, I think, that pick late in this draft are going to realize that they signed some quality ball players that will be able to help.
Yeah, it was a draft for me. It wasn't so much about the franchise caliber players. It was about the impact players, and you saw a lot of that. Portland is another team, I think, with Damian Lillard and also Myers Leonard did exceptionally well. Then you start looking on the back end. How about Oklahoma City? A guy who I think could be a top 5 talent, and Perry Jones III. You get him that late in the draft. That was impressive. Philadelphia, Maurice Harkless, Arnott Moultrie. Those are two guys that have a chance to have an impact right away. A lot of winners this year in the draft.
And Houston's a team to watch. They're stockpiling players. You wonder what they're going to do.
They're going to be busy.
With all of these guys. They've got Goran Dragic, a free agent. Oh, free agent. Free agency starts this weekend.
Oh, that's right. It starts.
See what I did there?
See what you did there.
He's got a bid right over the corner. He doesn't leave.
David Aldridge, Ron Thompson, Greg Anthony. I'm Vince Cellini. We thank you for joining us on this draft recap. Western Conference. So long.